All right, so we're gonna do this with no script, no car, no outside distractions in terms of people. There'd be plenty of noises, birds chirping and everything like that. Well, I still have a nice day. Don't mind the attire. It's kind of just what I was wearing, and I just wanted to do this video since I'm posting a lot to YouTube right now. So let's start. 2 years ago, almost 3 years ago now, coming up in August, I guess. I was given a 1967 Dodge Coronet from the people on a Motor Trend show called Roadkill. I have since had a lot of experience with the car. So when it was given to me, it was a 318 two-barrel that was completely worn out, automatic that kind of worked with column shifter, and then it had a 294 open differential. It was slow as slow could be. I mean, I'm sure there were definitely things slower, like the Maverick that I was trying to trade them, but it was definitely a slow piece. But me being me, I wanted to keep it because it just looked so cool, even with that big old dent on the front. I drove it around. I did some minor upgrades. I swapped it over to a 4-barrel. I actually got the kick down working because it wasn't when I got the car, which is why it was so slow with the 2-barrel. And when you put that thing in first gear and map the gas, it didn't bark the tires or anything like that, but it put you back in your seat. It felt that there was some sort of V8 in there. It was not a 6-cylinder, which was my main thing why I wanted to get rid of the Maverick, because I didn't want to have to swap it to a V8. I just wanted something that had a V8 in it. Well, I do regret selling the Maverick sometimes. It was definitely, in the grand scheme of things, it was 1,000,000,000% worth it. It went off to, go have fun somewhere else. And to my last knowledge, it's actually way upstate. Going to car shows just as a 77 Maverick, not the 77 Maverick off Roadkill or anything special like that. Nope, it's just a good driver, because I built that engine to last. However, too bad I didn't transfer that into my right foot and that engine that was in the car, because in December of 21, that motor sent a rod right through the oil pan and I blew up the original numbers matching 318. Boo-hoo. Well, me being strapped for cash, my dad knowing that, and my dad being the awesome person he is, got on Facebook and found me a low-mile 318, and that was my Christmas present. Well, late Christmas present, that is, but hey, can't dodge it. Free 318, whew, can't beat it. I ended up, because I got it for free, it ended up giving me a lot of leeway putting parts in it, so for less than $300, I completely rebuilt it with new rings. I put all new bearings in it, measured it all out, turned out great. I put a cam in it, degreeable timing gear, the 4-barrel intake off the other one, and the headers that came off the other one, and it was great. It was, originally it was awesome. And then it came back to bite me. Yep. The 69 318 that I had gotten, well, the valve guides were crappy. So what did I do? I took the 67 heads with the closed chambers because I knew that those made more power. I sent them off to go get them all done. And when I got them back, they were like brand new. So painted the whole engine Chrysler Industrial Red, because that was kind of what the color was of the original 318 that was in there. And I put it all together, and it was a great runner. Well, too bad I'm not too good at assembly, at least my torque wrench was not, because cruising on my way to school, I started feeling a vibration. I'm like, that's a little weird. Cruising about 70 miles an hour, I start hearing and then it was a loud bang, and then it was just a whole bunch of, it sounded like a flywheel or a flex plate bolt was hitting the back of the block, and I was like, oh, that's not good. So I pulled over, and I could see at the bottom of the oil pan, there were 2 bolts, like it was the number 1 main. There were 2 bolt, like you could see where the bolts had just been pressing down on the oil pan. Well, you know, I didn't know that at the time. I could see that there was some, I just thought it was like road wear, stuff like that. So I cranked it over. It still ran great. It still had 60 pounds of oil pressure at idle, hot. And it was missing a main cap. I was amazed. But regardless, I eventually figured out, oh, that's the number one main cap. So we took it out, and well, I brought it back home. This is September of about 22. I parked it, and I was like, all right, I'm done for right now. I need to focus on my schooling and get that done. And that's exactly what I did up until March of 22 or 23. I was like, you know what? I feel like driving the car again. So I flat towed it back to my house because I don't store it at my house. I store it at another place of mine. And a couple of guys, one weekend, we pulled the motor out, took it apart, took all the main caps off, and we did some things. Well, what we did was, I knew at my local junkyard there was a 89 D series or whatever with the oil pan off. Well, I decided to take all the main caps off that motor, take each and every single one of the ones that were not a thrust or the number 5 main bearing, so a 3 or 5, anything that was a 4, 2, or 1 main bearing, or retainer, or a main cap, and whichever one was the least likely to keep the crank from spinning, that was the one that got put in the motor. Yeah, not my proudest, but that motor is still running to this day, which is amazing in my eyes, even though the main cap's not even matched the block and it says 4 on it. So there's 2 number 4 main caps in that motor. Kind of funny if you ask me. Anyways, but that motor, it was great. It was horrendously reliable after I got the right torque and everything up until the very end, but we'll talk about that in a second. I did some other things. I upgraded to hooker competition headers. I upgraded to a Holley 700, which is way too much for that motor. It was just, still got 13 miles to the gallon, which is not great for a 318, but it still did pretty good. At the dyno, yeah, I took this thing to a dyno. I didn't have to pay for it. It was at my buddy's school, so can't beat it. It made 186 horsepower at 4,300 RPM and 252 foot-pounds of torque at 3,300 RPM. Not terrible, but not great. Well, that motor ended up propelling me all the way up. So I'm in about here, Michigan, and that propelled me all the way up to here, Michigan. Yeah, we took back roads all the way up there. Super beautiful drive. And the car did great all the way there and back. No issues. The only thing I ever had to do was fix the door locks on it. And one thing I should mention is that I did do sheet metal along the way. I actually bought a second car right after the motor blew up. And I used a lot of sheet metal off of that car to fix this one. And eventually somebody ended up hitting my door, and I did have to replace that. That's why, if you've seen my videos, I do have a like bright baby blue, petty blue door on the car. But it was, you know, it was just to keep the car straight, because the dent in the door was insane. It was huge. Regardless, well, I got a little over cocky, and the 318 was running great, so I decided I wanted to try and take it to Chicago. Well, that didn't end up happening. I got to about, like I said, I'm over here. I got to about here, Michigan, a little place called Harbert, and it started smoking real bad, and I was like, this motor's done. So, called around, found out that there was somebody pretty close to us, drove it there, parked it there for the weekend, and, you know, I was cruising with somebody, and we ended up making it back to Chicago, and then I had some good friends of mine pick me up and with a U-Haul and tow it back home. Well, now the Coronet's blown up again, and I don't know what's wrong. Well, eventually, I did look around, and, you know, I bought another 318 just in case, because I wanted to cruise something called the Woodward Dream Cruise. If you haven't heard of it, it's a super huge event in Detroit. It's basically all week long, but Friday, Saturday, Sunday are the main days. It's usually the third weekend in August, the weekend after the Roadkill Nights event. But basically, this 318 that I had bought was another 67. So I was like, oh, I could put a numbers matching car out there. I mean, it was out of a Plymouth, and it was kind of, you know, it was all original. There was like no upgrade parts in this thing, you know. I was just like, I could actually see what this thing would run, because it was complete carb to oil pan, including the air filter. So I was like, oh, well, should see what it runs. Well, I took out the 318 to do an inspection on it, and I was just like, all right, I got to find out what went wrong with this thing. So I buzzed the heads off, and there it sits. The oil pan, or the number 2 firing ring, had snapped and was protruding into the valley. So I'm like, all right, well, let me just get a top-end rebuild kit for this thing, and yeah, that's what I'm going to do. And I threw the 67 heads that were on it from when I got it, and that motor ran like a champ. And it just cruised. It made decent power. It was definitely a little faster once I actually replaced everything and got the car totally dialed for warm weather. And it cruised woodward, and it was a blast. Well, not being satisfied, or leaving well enough alone, I should say, I got my hands on a 440. Yes, the big bad 440 Chrysler V8, big block. I got it. This was about the time that I had put in the 318 for the last time. This was, by the way, this was 318 number 5. At least this was the 5th time it had gone in the car. And I tore it out. You know, I sold it to a guy that did a Barracuda. He lived 11 hours away, and he drove all the way up here to get it. And to my knowledge, it's still running in that car. And, you know, it's been several months, but apparently it is. Regardless, I got the 440. You know, I did a little dingle ball rebuild on it, and it's been great. It's got a 484 purple shaft in it. It's got a 72 pancake style square bore intake on it with a 1/8 spacer, and that Holley 700 carb that I've had this entire time. It's still got the 727 behind it at the moment, but I'm in the process of a 4-speed swap. And I will obviously post more videos of it. I would love to post videos about doing things like putting the pedals in, which I sadly have already done, as there's the automatic brake pedal right there. But I'm doing a hydraulic conversion on it because the headers will not allow you to do that. But that was basically everything you need to know to get up to speed on the Roadkill Coronet. Later.